The crystal chandelier above threw sparkles of light across the ballroom, but Simone felt nothing but cold dread spreading through her chest. She stood beside her husband Trevor at his company's annual gala, wearing the navy blue dress he had picked out for her. The dress was beautiful, expensive, and made her feel like a stranger in her own skin. But she had worn it because Trevor insisted it would photograph well. She watched him laugh with his colleagues, that confident smile that had first attracted her 10 years ago now seeming false under the bright lights. His hand rested casually in his pocket while he gestured with the other, telling some story about a client meeting. Simone knew she should be listening, should be the supportive wife, but her attention kept drifting to the young woman standing just behind Trevor's boss. Rachel, Trevor's assistant. 26 years old with perfect posture and a smile that never quite reached her eyes when she looked at Simone. Trevor was brilliant in that presentation, one of the executives was saying. Really saved the account. Simone felt a surge of pride despite everything. She reached out to take Trevor's hand, a simple gesture of support, the kind of thing married couples did without thinking. Her fingers had barely brushed his when he jerked his arm away like she had burned him. "Don't touch me in front of everyone," he hissed, his voice low but sharp enough to cut. The words hit her like a slap. The executive who had been speaking stopped mid-sentence. Two other colleagues glanced away, suddenly very interested in their drinks. The silence lasted only a second, maybe two, but it felt like an hour. Simone's hand hung in the air between them, frozen. She started. "Simone, please." Trevor's jaw tightened. "You're making a scene." She wasn't making a scene. She had barely moved. But everyone was looking at her now, and their eyes held pity. That was somehow worse than anything else. She pulled her hand back and pressed it against her stomach, trying to hold herself together. "Excuse me," she managed to say, her voice barely above a whisper. "I need to use the restroom." Nobody tried to stop her. She walked across the ballroom on legs that felt like they might give out at any moment. The bathroom was mercifully empty, all white marble and bright lights that showed every detail of her face in the mirror. Her eyes were too wide, her smile too tight. She looked terrified. When had she started looking terrified? She ran cold water over her wrists, an old trick her mother had taught her for staying calm. The water was shocking against her skin, real in a way the rest of the evening wasn't. She counted to 10, then 20, then 30. When she finally looked up again, her reflection had settled into something more composed. She could do this. She could go back out there and stand beside Trevor and smile and pretend that everything was fine. She had been doing it for months now, maybe longer. What was one more night? But when she stepped out of the bathroom, she saw them. Trevor and Rachel, standing in the small alcove near the coat check where they thought no one could see them. Trevor's hand was on Rachel's lower back, possessive and familiar. Rachel was laughing at something he had said, her head tilted back, her hand resting on his chest. It was the way Rachel's hand rested on his chest that did it. Casual. Comfortable. Like she had done it 1,000 times before. Simone stepped back into the hallway shadow, her heart pounding so hard she thought everyone in the ballroom must be able to hear it. She watched Trevor lean in close to whisper something in Rachel's ear. Watched Rachel's smile grow wider. Watched her husband touch another woman the way he used to touch her, back when things were good between them. How long had this been going on? The question echoed in her mind as she watched them separate, Rachel heading back toward the ballroom first, Trevor waiting a careful 30 seconds before following. Professional. Practiced. They had done this before. Many times before. Simone pressed her back against the wall, her breath coming in short gasps. Everything suddenly made sense. The late nights at the office. The business trips that seemed to multiply. The way Trevor flinched when she touched him. The distance that had grown between them like a canyon, wide and deep and impossible to cross. She had thought it was stress. She had thought it was work. She had thought it was her fault for not being interesting enough, pretty enough, supportive enough. But it wasn't her fault at all. When she finally walked back into the ballroom, Trevor was standing with his boss and 3 other executives. He saw her approaching and his expression shifted, just for a moment. Guilt? Fear? It was gone too quickly for her to read. He reached out to her, the same hand that had been on Rachel's back minutes ago. "There you are, sweetheart," he said, his voice warm and false. "We were just talking about the Harrison account." Simone looked at his hand, then at his face. She saw him clearly for the first time in years. The practiced smile. The calculated charm. The lie behind his eyes. She took his hand because everyone was watching, but she felt nothing. No love. No anger. Just a cold, clear understanding that everything she thought she knew about her marriage was wrong. "That's wonderful," she said, matching his false warmth with her own. Tell me all about it. She stood there for another hour, smiling and nodding and playing the role of the perfect wife. But inside, her mind was racing. She was already planning. Already thinking about what came next. Because she knew one thing with absolute certainty. She was done. She was done being humiliated. Done being pushed away. Done being made to feel small and foolish and wrong for wanting her own husband to love her. Trevor had made his choice. Now she would make hers. When they finally left the gala, Trevor drove home in silence. Simone sat in the passenger seat and watched the city lights blur past the window. She didn't cry. She didn't speak. She just watched and planned and waited. Tomorrow she would start gathering evidence. Tomorrow she would start building her case. Tomorrow she would start building her exit. But tonight she would smile and go to bed and pretend that everything was fine. One last night of pretending. Then everything would change. Simone woke up at 6 in the morning to find Trevor already gone. The note on the kitchen counter said he had an early meeting, but she knew better now. Everything looked different through the lens of truth. The early meetings were probably breakfast with Rachel. The late nights were probably dinner with Rachel. The business trips were probably weekends with Rachel. She made coffee with steady hands and sat at the kitchen table in the quiet house. The sunlight coming through the windows seemed too bright, too cheerful for what she was about to do. But she couldn't wait. Every day she waited was another day Trevor could hide evidence, move money, or cover his tracks. She started with his laptop. Trevor had left it on his desk in the home office, password protected but easy to guess. She tried their anniversary date first. Wrong. Then his birthday. Wrong. Then, on a hunch that made her stomach turn, she tried Rachel's birthday. The screen unlocked. The first thing she found were the emails. Hundreds of them going back 18 months. They started professional enough, discussing schedules and client meetings. But by the third month, the tone had changed. Rachel sent him photos. Trevor replied with promises. They talked about hotels and weekend getaways and a future that didn't include Simone. I can't wait until we don't have to hide anymore, Rachel had written in one email from 6 months ago. When are you going to tell her? Soon, Trevor had replied. I just need to figure out the finances first. I can't lose everything in the divorce. Simone stared at those words until they blurred. He wasn't staying because he loved her or because he was confused. He was staying because he was calculating. Trying to figure out how to leave her with nothing. She took screenshots of everything. Every email. Every text message she could find. Every photo Rachel had sent. She saved them all to a flash drive and then to the cloud. Evidence. Proof. Protection. Then she opened their banking app. They had 3 joint accounts: checking, savings, and a money market account they were supposed to be using to save for a house. The checking account looked normal, with regular deposits from both their paychecks and normal expenses. But the savings account balance made her freeze. They should have had close to $150,000 in savings. The balance showed $12,000. Simone felt like someone had punched her in the chest. She clicked through to the transaction history with shaking hands. The withdrawals had started a year ago. Small amounts at first, $2,000 here, $3,000 there. Then larger amounts. $10,000. $15,000. $20,000. The most recent withdrawal was from last week, $25,000. The money market account was worse. It should have had $80,000. The balance was $0. Trevor had cleaned it out completely 3 months ago. She printed out all the bank statements and stuffed them in a folder. Then she went through Trevor's desk drawers looking for anything else. She found credit card statements for cards she didn't know existed. He had racked up $45,000 in debt. Hotels, restaurants, jewelry stores. All the romantic gestures he used to do for her, he was now doing for Rachel. In the bottom drawer, hidden under some old tax documents, she found a receipt from a jewelry store. $8,000 for a diamond bracelet. The date was 2 months ago. Simone had never seen a diamond bracelet. She knew exactly who had. Her phone buzzed. A text from Trevor. Meeting running long. Don't wait up for dinner. She stared at the message. Before yesterday she would have believed it. She would have eaten alone and gone to bed alone and told herself that he was working hard for their future. Now she knew he was probably making plans with Rachel. Maybe using more of their money to buy her another gift. Simone called in sick to work. Her boss understood. She rarely took sick days and her voice must have sounded as hollow as she felt. Then she sat down at the computer and started researching divorce lawyers. She made a list of questions. How do you prove financial fraud? Can you recover money your spouse stole? What happens to debt accumulated during the marriage? How long does a divorce take? She found a lawyer named Patricia Holmes who specialized in high-conflict divorces. Her website showed a woman in her 50s with kind eyes and a firm jaw. Her reviews all said the same thing: she fights for her clients. She doesn't let anyone get pushed around. Best lawyer I ever hired. Simone called the office. The receptionist was friendly and efficient. We have an opening tomorrow at 10. Would that work? Yes, Simone said. That would work. She spent the rest of the day going through everything. She found their tax returns and made copies. She found the deed to the house and photographed it. She found Trevor's employment contract and his salary information. She found insurance policies and retirement accounts and investment statements. By the time Trevor came home at 8 that night, smelling like perfume that wasn't hers, Simone had built a complete financial picture of their marriage. She knew exactly what they owned and exactly what Trevor had stolen. "Hey," he said, dropping his briefcase by the door. "How was your day?" "Fine," she said from the couch, her voice neutral. "How was your meeting?" "Long." He loosened his tie and headed for the bedroom. "I'm going to take a shower." Simone waited until she heard the water running. Then she went back to his laptop and found the private investigator's website she had bookmarked earlier. She filled out the contact form, giving details about Trevor's schedule and Rachel's address and the hotels they seemed to prefer. The response came within an hour. "We can start tomorrow. Our rate is $150 per hour. We'll need a $1,500 retainer." Simone had her own checking account that Trevor didn't know about. She had been putting money in it for years, small amounts from her paycheck that she told herself were for emergencies. This qualified. She transferred the money and confirmed the appointment. The investigator would start following Trevor tomorrow afternoon. When Trevor came out of the shower, Simone was in bed pretending to read. He got in beside her and reached for her hand. She let him take it even though her skin crawled at the touch. "I love you," he said, the same lie he had probably told her 1,000 times. "I love you too," she replied and felt nothing. She lay awake long after he fell asleep, listening to him breathe beside her. This man who had promised to love and cherish her. This man who had stolen from her and lied to her and humiliated her in public. This man who thought she was too stupid or too weak to notice what he was doing. He had no idea what was coming. No idea that while he slept, she was gathering evidence and building her case and preparing to walk away from everything they had built together. Tomorrow she would meet with the lawyer. Tomorrow the investigator would start collecting proof. Tomorrow she would take the first real step toward freedom. But tonight she would lie here and let him think he had won. Let him think she was still the quiet, trusting wife who believed his lies. Let him think he was safe. Because the element of surprise was the only advantage she had, and she wasn't going to waste it. Patricia Holmes's office was on the 20th floor of a building downtown, with floor-to-ceiling windows that looked out over the city. Simone sat in the waiting room with her folder of evidence clutched in her lap, trying to keep her breathing steady. She had told Trevor she had a doctor's appointment. He hadn't even looked up from his phone when she left. "Simone." The receptionist smiled at her. "Patricia is ready for you." Patricia Holmes was exactly like her photo, 50s, kind eyes, firm jaw. But in person there was something else. A sharpness. An intelligence that made Simone feel instantly safer. "Thank you for seeing me," Simone said, sitting down in the chair across from Patricia's desk. "Of course." Patricia opened a legal pad and picked up a pen. "Why don't you tell me what's going on?" Simone took a breath and started talking. She told Patricia about the gala, about the emails, about the money. She showed her the bank statements and the credit card bills and the screenshots from Trevor's laptop. She laid it all out, every piece of evidence she had gathered, and watched Patricia's expression grow darker. "This is financial abuse," Patricia said finally. "And possibly fraud depending on how he's been moving the money. You have excellent documentation. Can I get the money back?" Simone asked. "Or is it just gone? We can fight for it. The court doesn't look kindly on one spouse depleting marital assets, especially when it's being used to fund an affair. We can ask for reimbursement and we can make sure the remaining assets are divided fairly." Patricia made notes on her pad. "But I need to know, are you sure you want to do this? Divorce is hard and it's going to get harder when he realizes you're serious." "I'm sure," Simone said. "I don't want to be married to someone who treats me like this." "Good." Patricia nodded. "Then here's what we're going to do. First, we're going to get you set up with a forensic accountant who can track every penny Trevor has spent. Second, we're going to file for divorce and request an immediate freeze on all assets so he can't move any more money. Third, we're going to make sure you're protected financially, legally, and personally. They spent the next 2 hours going through everything. Patricia asked questions Simone hadn't even thought of. Did Trevor have any family money? Did they have any property besides the house? Were there any businesses or investments she didn't know about? By the time Simone left the office, she had a plan. A real, concrete plan with steps and timelines and goals. She also had homework. Patricia wanted her to gather more financial documents and make a list of everything they owned, from furniture to retirement accounts. Simone went home and spent the afternoon photographing every room in the house. Every piece of furniture. Every appliance. Every item of value. She made a spreadsheet listing everything they owned and what it was worth. She felt like she was cataloging her whole life, and in a way she was. Her phone buzzed with a text from the private investigator. Got some good photos today. We'll send report tonight. The report came at 9 p.m., after Trevor had texted to say he was working late. The investigator had followed Trevor from his office to a restaurant across town. The photos showed Trevor and Rachel at a corner table, holding hands across the white tablecloth, kissing in the parking lot, getting into Trevor's car together and driving to a hotel. Simone looked at the photos and felt nothing. No anger, no sadness, just a cold certainty that she was doing the right thing. She saved the photos to her cloud drive and added them to her evidence folder. The next day, she met with the forensic accountant Patricia had recommended. His name was Robert Chin, and he had the focused intensity of someone who loved numbers more than people. This is straightforward, Robert said, looking at her bank statements. Your husband has been systematically draining your accounts for over a year. I can track every withdrawal and show exactly where the money went. Hotels, restaurants, cash withdrawals, transfers to credit cards. It's all documented. How much is gone? Simone asked, even though she already knew. From what I can see here, approximately $218,000. But I'll need access to all your accounts to give you a final number. $218,000. More than she had thought. More than she could really comprehend. That was years of saving, years of working, years of planning for a future that Trevor had already thrown away. Can we get it back? She asked. We can try. The court will consider it marital waste, money spent on the affair. At minimum, we can argue that you should receive a larger share of the remaining assets to compensate for what he took. Simone signed the papers giving Robert access to their financial records. He promised to have a complete report within a week. She went home and cooked dinner. Trevor came home at 7, earlier than usual. He kissed her cheek and asked about her day. She told him it was fine and asked about his. He told her about a meeting that probably never happened and a client that probably didn't exist. They ate dinner together like a normal couple. They watched television together like nothing was wrong. Trevor put his arm around her on the couch and she let him, even though it made her skin crawl. I'm glad we have nights like this, he said. Just the two of us. Me too, she lied. The investigator sent more photos the next day. Trevor and Rachel at lunch. Trevor and Rachel leaving work together. Trevor and Rachel in his car, parked in a quiet street, clearly arguing about something. Simone saved every photo. Every piece of evidence. Every proof of his betrayal. She opened a new bank account at a different bank, one Trevor had never used. She started having her paycheck deposited there instead of their joint account. Small amounts at first, then her whole paycheck. Trevor never noticed. She found a storage unit and rented it for 3 months. She started moving things there, photos from her childhood, her grandmother's jewelry, important documents, anything she wanted to make sure Trevor couldn't touch in the divorce. She did it slowly, a box at a time, when Trevor was at work. She met with Patricia twice more that week. They reviewed the investigators' reports and Robert's preliminary findings. They discussed strategy and timeline. Patricia recommended waiting until they had a complete picture before filing. You only get one chance to catch him off guard, Patricia said. We need to make sure we have everything when we move. Simone agreed. Every day of waiting was another day of evidence. Another day of photos from the investigator. Another day of Trevor digging himself deeper. She started looking at apartments online. Nothing too expensive. She needed to save her money for the divorce and for starting over. But something clean and safe in hers. She bookmarked her favorites and made plans to view them once she filed. Trevor noticed she was quiet. Is everything okay? He asked one night. You seem distant. I'm fine, she said. Just tired. Maybe you should take some time off work. You've been pushing yourself too hard. The irony almost made her laugh. He was the one working late every night, and he was worried about her pushing herself too hard. Maybe, she said. I'll think about it. But she didn't take time off. She kept working, kept gathering evidence, kept preparing. Every morning she woke up and pretended everything was fine. Every night she went to bed next to a man she no longer trusted. And in between she built her case piece by piece. Robert sent his final report 3 weeks after their first meeting. The total amount Trevor had taken was $236,000. He had spent it on hotels, restaurants, gifts for Rachel, and cash withdrawals that couldn't be traced. He had also opened 2 credit cards in both their names and maxed them out, another $62,000 in debt that Simone would be responsible for if she didn't fight it. Patricia reviewed everything and nodded. We have enough. More than enough. When do you want to file? Simone thought about it. Trevor had a business trip coming up in 2 weeks. He would be gone for 5 days, supposedly at a conference in Chicago. The investigator had already confirmed that Rachel was booked on the same flight. I want to file while he's gone, Simone said. I want to move out and have the papers ready when he gets back. That's smart, Patricia said. Less chance of confrontation, and it gives us time to secure your assets and get the restraining order in place if we need it. They set the date. 2 weeks from Friday, while Trevor was in Chicago with Rachel, Simone would file for divorce. She would move out. She would start over. And Trevor would come home to an empty house and realize that the wife he had taken for granted was done playing his game. The investigator's name was Monica, and she called Simone 3 days before Trevor's trip. I have something you need to see, she said. Can you come to my office? Simone left work early and drove to Monica's office in a strip mall on the east side of town. The office was small but professional, with photos on the wall showing Monica's credentials and licenses. Monica herself was in her 40s, with short hair and observant eyes that missed nothing. Sit down, Monica said, gesturing to a chair. She pulled up a file on her computer. I've been following your husband for 3 weeks now, and I've documented 67 meetings with Rachel. Lunches, dinners, hotel visits, car meetups. I have photos and video of all of them. She clicked through the images. Trevor and Rachel walking hand in hand. Trevor and Rachel kissing in a parking garage. Trevor and Rachel checking into a hotel at 2 in the afternoon. The photos were clear and damning. But that's not all, Monica said. She pulled up a different file. I also followed Rachel. And I found something interesting. The next photo showed Rachel at a doctor's office. The sign on the building said, Women's Health Center. She's been going there once a week for the past month, Monica said. I can't confirm what for, but based on her age and the frequency of visits, I'd say she's pregnant. Simone felt the room tilt. Pregnant. Rachel was pregnant. Are you sure? She asked. Not 100%, but I'm 90% sure. The timeline fits, and I've seen her coming out of those appointments looking emotional several times. Monica pulled up more photos. I also captured some interesting conversations. She played a video. The audio was grainy but clear enough. Trevor and Rachel in his car, parked outside a coffee shop. When are you going to tell her? Rachel's voice frustrated. I need more time. Trevor's voice defensive. The divorce is complicated. She'll take everything. I'm not waiting forever, Trevor. I told you about the baby. We need to make a decision. I know. Just give me until after the Chicago trip. I'll talk to her then. The video ended. Simone sat there processing. Trevor knew about the baby. He was planning to ask for a divorce after the Chicago trip. He thought he was going to beat her to it. There's more, Monica said. She pulled up financial records. Your husband has been moving money. Not just from your accounts but from his company accounts too. I think he's been embezzling. What? Simone leaned forward. Look at this. Monica showed her bank statements for an account Simone had never seen. This account is in your husband's name only. He's been making deposits that don't match his salary. Small amounts, $3,000 here, $5,000 there, but they add up. Over the past year, he's deposited close to $90,000 into this account. Where is the money coming from? I think from his company. He has access to client accounts, right? I think he's been skimming money and covering it up with fake expenses. It's fraud. Simone felt sick. Trevor wasn't just cheating on her and stealing from their marriage. He was stealing from his company too. If this came out, he wouldn't just lose the divorce. He'd lose his job. Maybe face criminal charges. What should I do with this? Simone asked. Give it to your lawyer. Let her decide how to use it. But if I were you, I'd also consider reporting it to his company. They have a right to know they're being robbed. Simone took the flash drive Monica handed her and drove home in a daze. Trevor was already there, packing for his trip. He seemed excited, almost manic. Hey, he said when she walked in. How was work? Fine, she said automatically. You're packing already? The trip isn't for 3 days. I know, I just want to be prepared. Big conference, important clients. I need to make a good impression. Simone watched him fold shirts and thought about Rachel being pregnant. Thought about the embezzled money. Thought about how Trevor had no idea that his whole world was about to collapse. I'm going to miss you, she said, testing him. He barely looked up. I'll miss you too. But it's only 5 days. 5 days. 5 days for her to move out, file the papers, and disappear from his life completely. She took the flash drive to Patricia's office the next morning. Patricia watched the videos and reviewed the financial documents with growing interest. This changes everything, Patricia said. If he's embezzling from his company, that's a criminal matter. We need to be very careful about how we handle this. What do you mean? If we report it now, the police might freeze all his assets, including the ones you're entitled to in the divorce. But if we don't report it and someone finds out later that we knew, that could be a problem. Patricia tapped her pen against the desk. Let me consult with a colleague. In the meantime, let's focus on the divorce. We can deal with the embezzlement after. Simone agreed. She spent the next 2 days in a strange state of calm. She knew what was coming. She knew that in less than a week her whole life would change. But she wasn't scared. She was ready. She called her friend Jessica, the only person she had told about the divorce. Can I stay with you for a few weeks? Just until I find my own place. Of course, Jessica said immediately. Stay as long as you need. Simone reserved a moving truck for Friday. She made a list of everything she wanted to take, her clothes, her books, her grandmother's furniture that had been in the guest room, all the things that were hers before she married Trevor. She would leave him everything else. The fancy furniture he had picked out. The expensive television. The artwork on the walls. She didn't want any of it. On Thursday night, Trevor came home with flowers. Red roses, the kind he used to buy her when they were dating. What's this for? Simone asked. No reason. I just wanted to remind you that I love you. He kissed her cheek. I know I've been working a lot lately and I'm sorry. When I get back from this trip, I'm going to make more time for us. Simone took the flowers and put them in a vase. She knew they were gilt flowers. Probably bought because Rachel had been pushing him to leave, and he felt bad about what he was planning to do. Or maybe he just wanted to keep her calm until after the trip. It didn't matter. By the time he got back, she would be gone. That sounds nice, she said. I'd like that. They had dinner together. They watched television. They went to bed. And Simone lay awake, counting down the hours until freedom. Trevor's flight left at 6 a.m. Friday morning. Simone woke up with him, made coffee, kissed him goodbye at the door. He pulled her close and held her longer than usual. I'll call you when I land, he said. Safe flight, she replied. She watched him drive away and then sat down at the kitchen table. Her hands were shaking, but not from fear. From anticipation. From relief. This was it. After months of planning and gathering evidence and pretending everything was fine, this was the day everything changed. She called in sick to work. Then she called the moving company to confirm they were coming at 9. Then she called Patricia. He just left, Simone said. Good. The papers are ready. I'll have them delivered to the house at 5 p.m. That gives you the whole day to move out and be somewhere safe before he gets them. Jessica showed up at 8 with coffee and boxes. I'm here to help, she said, pulling Simone into a hug. Let's get you out of here. They started in the bedroom. Simone packed her clothes, her shoes, her jewelry. She left Trevor's side of the closet untouched. She took her books from the bookshelf in the living room, leaving spaces where they had been. She took her laptop and her files and all the personal items she had been slowly moving to storage over the past month. The movers arrived at 9 and started loading the truck. Simone watched them carry out her grandmother's dresser, the one piece of furniture she cared about. She watched them load boxes of her things, her life, everything she wanted to keep from this marriage. By noon the truck was loaded. Simone walked through the empty house one last time. Her clothes were gone from the closet. Her toiletries were gone from the bathroom. Her books were gone from the shelves. The house looked strange without her things in it. Hollow. Like she had never been there at all. She left her wedding ring on the kitchen counter. She had worn it for 10 years, but taking it off felt like removing a weight she hadn't known she was carrying. She left it there, next to her house key and the garage door opener. Then she left the divorce papers on the kitchen table, right in the center where Trevor couldn't miss them. They were thick 40 pages of complaints and evidence and demands. Patricia had done a thorough job. Every piece of evidence they had gathered was documented. Every dollar Trevor had stolen was listed. Every lie was exposed. On top of the papers, Simone placed a printed copy of the photo from the investigator Trevor and Rachel kissing in the hotel parking lot. She wanted that to be the first thing he saw. She took one last look around the kitchen. 10 years of marriage. 10 years of cooking dinners and planning holidays and building a life with someone who had been lying to her. 10 years of trying to be good enough, trying to be perfect, trying to make him happy. She was done trying. She locked the door behind her and got in her car. Jessica was already heading to her apartment with the moving truck. Simone sat in the driveway for a moment, looking at the house one last time. Her phone buzzed. A text from Trevor: landed safe. Chicago is cold. Miss you already. Simone deleted the text without responding. She blocked his number. Then she drove away from the house and didn't look back. Jessica's apartment was small but comfortable. The movers helped Simone carry everything up to the second bedroom, which Jessica had cleared out for her. Boxes stacked against the walls. Her grandmother's dresser in the corner. It wasn't much, but it was hers. Thank you, Simone told Jessica when the movers left. I don't know what I would have done without you. You would have figured it out, Jessica said. You're stronger than you think. At 5 p.m., Simone's phone rang. It was Patricia. The papers have been delivered, Patricia said. The process server confirmed he left them on the kitchen table as instructed. What happens now? Simone asked. Now we wait. Trevor has 30 days to respond. In the meantime, I've filed a motion to freeze all marital assets so he can't move any more money. And I've sent a letter to his company's legal department informing them about the embezzlement. You reported him? After consultation with a criminal law colleague, yes. We had a legal obligation to report suspected fraud. The company will do their own investigation. If they find evidence of embezzlement, they'll likely fire him and possibly press charges. Simone felt a flutter of something in her chest. Not quite guilt, but not quite satisfaction either. What will happen to him? That's not your concern anymore, Patricia said gently. Your concern is protecting yourself and getting what you're entitled to in the divorce. Let Trevor worry about Trevor. After they hung up, Simone sat on Jessica's couch and realized she had nothing to do. No dinner to cook for Trevor. No house to clean. No lies to pretend to believe. For the first time in months, she had nothing but time and silence and freedom. She ordered pizza and ate it with Jessica while they watched bad reality television. She laughed at something stupid one of the contestants said. The laugh surprised her. She hadn't really laughed in so long she had almost forgotten what it felt like. At 9 p.m. her phone rang. A known number. She almost didn't answer, but curiosity got the better of her. Hello? Simone. Trevor's voice tight with panic. What the hell is this? What did you do? She had unblocked him from Patricia's phone for legal reasons, but hearing his voice still made her stomach clench. I filed for divorce, she said calmly. I can see that. But this is insane. These accusations you're saying I stole money? That I had an affair? This is crazy. It's all documented, Trevor. The bank statements, the credit cards, the photos. It's all there. Photos? What photos? Check the envelope. There's a flash drive with about 300 photos from the private investigator I hired. Silence on the other end. Then, you hired a private investigator? I did. And a forensic accountant. And a lawyer who specializes in high-conflict divorces. I've been planning this for a month, Trevor. Did you really think I wouldn't notice what you were doing? Simone, please. We can talk about this. Whatever you think happened, I can explain. Don't, she cut him off. Don't lie to me anymore. I know about Rachel. I know about the baby. I know about the money you stole from me and from your company. I know everything. Another silence. Then quietly, the company? I reported the embezzlement. Your employer should be contacting you soon. You did what? His voice rose to a shout. You destroyed my career. You destroyed everything. No, Trevor. You destroyed everything. I'm just making sure you face the consequences. I can't believe you would do this. After everything I've done for you? Done for me? Simone laughed, a harsh sound. You stole from me. You humiliated me. You made me feel small and stupid and worthless. The best thing you ever did for me was show me who you really are. Simone, please. We can work this out. I made mistakes, but we can fix this. Don't throw away 10 years of marriage. You threw it away the moment you touched Rachel. Goodbye, Trevor. She hung up. He called back immediately. She declined the call. He called again. She blocked the number. Her phone buzzed with texts from numbers she didn't recognize. Trevor using different phones trying to reach her. She blocked each one. Finally, she turned off her phone completely. Jessica sat next to her on the couch. "How do you feel?" Simone thought about it. "Free," she said finally. "I feel free." That night, she slept better than she had in months. No more pretending. No more lying. No more waiting for the other shoe to drop. It had dropped. The worst had happened. And she was still standing. The first week after filing was chaos. Trevor's lawyer, a man named Greg Foster who looked like he charged $500 per hour, contacted Patricia immediately. He wanted to negotiate. He wanted to settle. He wanted to make this all go away quietly. Patricia told him to pound sand. "We're not settling," she told Simone at their meeting the following Monday. "Not yet. Not until we get every piece of information we need and every dollar you're entitled to." Trevor tried calling Simone from new numbers every day. She blocked each one. He tried emailing. She set up a filter to send his emails directly to a folder she never checked. He tried showing up at her office. Security escorted him out. He tried showing up at Jessica's apartment building. Jessica called the police. They gave him a warning about harassment. Finally, he stopped. The silence was almost worse than the chaos. Simone kept waiting for the next attempt, the next escalation, but nothing came. Then Patricia called. "We got the company's investigation results." Simone met her at the office. Patricia handed her a thick file. Trevor's company did a full forensic audit. They found evidence of embezzlement totaling $127,000 over 2 years. They've fired him and reported him to the police. He's likely to face criminal charges. Simone looked at the file. Part of her felt sick. Part of her felt vindicated. Mostly she just felt tired. "There's more," Patricia said. "Rachel came to see me." "What? Why?" "She wants to talk to you. She says she has information that might help your case." "No," Simone said immediately. "I don't want anything to do with her." "I understand. But listen to what she told me. Rachel is 8 weeks pregnant with Trevor's baby. Trevor promised to leave you and marry her. He told her he had plenty of money saved up and they would start a new life together. When the embezzlement came out and he lost his job, she realized he was broke. The money he spent on her came from stealing from you and from the company. She's angry and she's willing to testify about everything he told her." Simone sat back in her chair. "She wants to help me? She wants to hurt him. The result is the same. What happens if she testifies? It strengthens our case for the court to award you reimbursement for marital waste. It also gives us leverage to negotiate a better settlement. Plus, her testimony could help the prosecution in the criminal case." Simone thought about it. The idea of working with Rachel, even indirectly, made her stomach turn. But Patricia was right, the result was the same. Trevor would face consequences. Simone would get justice. "Okay," she said. "Tell her I'll agree to let her testify. But I don't want to meet her or talk to her directly." "Understood." The next 2 weeks were a whirlwind of legal paperwork. Patricia filed motions. Trevor's lawyer filed counter motions. They fought over every asset, every piece of furniture, every shared account. Trevor's position was simple. He wanted to split everything 50-50. He claimed the money he took was marital funds that he had a right to spend. He denied the affair despite the photos. He denied the embezzlement, despite his company's findings. His lawyer argued that Simone was vindictive and trying to destroy Trevor's life over a simple marital disagreement. Patricia's response was devastating. She submitted the photos from the investigator, the bank statements from the forensic accountant, Rachel's sworn statement about the affair and the baby, Trevor's company's investigation results. The judge took one look at the evidence and ruled that all marital assets would remain frozen until the final divorce hearing. Trevor couldn't touch any of the remaining money. He couldn't sell the house. He couldn't liquidate their investments. He was stuck. Without a job and without access to money, Trevor started falling apart. Simone heard about it through mutual friends who didn't know when to keep their mouths shut. He moved in with his brother. He couldn't make the mortgage payment on the house. He was applying for jobs, but no one wanted to hire someone under investigation for embezzlement. Rachel left him. She moved back to her parents' house in another state. Simone heard she was keeping the baby but wanted nothing to do with Trevor. Trevor's family tried to reach out to Simone. His mother called and left a voicemail begging Simone to drop the charges and give Trevor another chance. His brother sent an email saying Trevor had made mistakes but didn't deserve to have his whole life destroyed. Simone deleted the voicemail. She blocked the email. She owed Trevor's family nothing. The criminal case moved forward. The district attorney charged Trevor with embezzlement and fraud. His bail was set at $50,000. He couldn't make it. He spent 3 days in jail before his brother borrowed money to get him out. Simone felt nothing. No satisfaction. No guilt. Just a strange emptiness where her marriage used to be. She started seeing a therapist, a woman named Dr. Patel who specialized in divorce recovery. Dr. Patel was gentle but direct. "You've been through a trauma," she told Simone in their first session. "Betrayal by someone you trusted is one of the hardest things to heal from. It's okay to feel angry. It's okay to feel sad. It's okay to feel nothing at all." "I don't know what I feel," Simone admitted. "Sometimes I'm angry. Sometimes I'm sad. Sometimes I just feel relieved that it's over." "All of those feelings are valid," Dr. Patel said. "The important thing is not to suppress them. Let yourself feel what you feel." Simone started journaling. She wrote about the marriage, about the betrayal, about the divorce. She wrote about her plans for the future. She wrote until her hand hurt and her mind felt clearer. She joined a support group for people going through divorce. Sitting in a circle with 10 other people who understood exactly what she was feeling helped more than she expected. They shared stories. They cried together. They celebrated small victories together. Patricia called with an update. "Trevor's lawyer wants to settle. He's offering you 60% of the remaining assets and agreeing to pay back 40% of what he stole." "That's not enough," Simone said. "I agree. I think we can get more. Let me counter." They went back and forth for another week. Finally, Trevor's lawyer came back with a final offer. Simone would get 75% of all remaining marital assets. Trevor would pay back 60% of what he stole over time, and he would waive any claim to spousal support. "Take it," Patricia advised. "It's a good deal. And it gets you out faster." Simone thought about it. Part of her wanted to fight for every penny. But another part of her just wanted to be done. Wanted to close this chapter and move on. "Okay," she said. "I'll take it." They signed the settlement agreement. The divorce would be final in 90 days. Simone would get the house which she planned to sell. She would get most of their savings and investments. She would get her freedom. Trevor would get the debt, the criminal charges, and the consequences of his choices. On the day they signed the papers, Simone and Trevor were in the same building but different rooms. She didn't see him. Didn't want to see him. Patricia handled everything. When it was done, Patricia called her. "It's over. The settlement is signed. You're officially getting divorced." Simone hung up and sat in her car in the parking lot. It was over. Really over. No more waiting. No more fighting. No more marriage. She cried then for the first time since finding out about the affair. Not because she missed Trevor or regretted the divorce, but because she was grieving the life she thought she would have. The future she had planned. The person she thought Trevor was. She cried for the woman who had stood at that gala and reached for her husband's hand. The woman who had believed his lies and trusted his promises. The woman who had thought love was enough. Then she dried her tears, started her car, and drove to Jessica's apartment. That woman was gone. A stronger woman had taken her place. A woman who knew her worth and wouldn't settle for less than she deserved. And that woman was ready to build a new life. The house sold in 3 weeks. Simone walked through it one last time, making sure she hadn't left anything behind. The rooms were empty, just walls and floors and windows. It didn't look like the place where she had spent 10 years of her life. It looked like just another house. She locked the door and handed the keys to the realtor. After paying off the mortgage and splitting the equity according to the settlement, she walked away with $180,000. Combined with her share of their other assets, she had enough to start over. She found a small apartment on the west side of town. 1 bedroom, a galley kitchen, and a balcony that looked out over a park. It was nothing like the house she had shared with Trevor. It was better. It was hers. She bought furniture piece by piece. Nothing expensive or fancy. Just things she liked. A comfortable couch in deep blue. A bookshelf for her growing collection. A small dining table where she could eat breakfast and work on her laptop. Every piece was a choice she made for herself. Dr. Patel told her this was part of the healing process. "You're reclaiming your autonomy," she said. "For 10 years, you made decisions based on what Trevor wanted or what the marriage needed. Now you're learning to make decisions based on what you want." It was harder than it sounded. Simone would stand in a store looking at coffee mugs and freeze, unable to decide if she liked the blue ones or the green ones. Did she even like coffee mugs? Did she care? But slowly she figured it out. She did like the blue ones. She also liked cooking her own meals and watching documentaries and going to bed at 9 p.m. because she was tired, not because someone else was staying up late. She reconnected with old friends she had lost touch with during the marriage. Jessica introduced her to new people. She joined a book club that met every other Thursday. She started taking a yoga class on Saturday mornings. Work became something she actually enjoyed again. Without the constant stress of her failing marriage, she could focus. She landed a major project at her marketing firm and executed it flawlessly. Her boss noticed. "You've been doing excellent work lately," he told her at her annual review. "I'd like to promote you to senior consultant." The promotion came with a raise and more responsibility. Simone threw herself into it. She worked on campaigns for major clients. She traveled to conferences and networking events. She built a reputation as someone who could handle complex projects and deliver results. 6 months after the divorce was finalized, her boss approached her with an idea. "Have you ever thought about going independent? You have the skills and the client relationships. I think you could do really well as a consultant." Simone hadn't thought about it. But once he said it, the idea wouldn't leave her mind. She did the math. She calculated expenses and projected income. She created a business plan. 3 months later, she gave notice at her firm and started her own consulting business. She was terrified. What if she failed? What if she couldn't find clients? What if she had made a huge mistake? But she also felt alive in a way she hadn't felt in years. This was her choice, her risk, her dream. Her first client was a former colleague who needed help with a product launch. The second was a referral from that client. The third was someone she met at a networking event. Within 6 months, she had enough steady work to pay her bills and save money. She hired an accountant to help with taxes and finances. She set up a retirement account and started contributing to it regularly. She bought better health insurance. She built credit in her own name. 1 year after leaving Trevor, Simone looked at her life and barely recognized it. She lived in an apartment she loved. She ran a business that was growing. She had friends who supported her. She had savings in the bank and plans for the future. She also had herself back. The quiet, uncertain woman who had stood in that ballroom and reached for her husband's hand was gone. In her place was someone stronger. Someone who knew what she wanted and wasn't afraid to go after it. Dr. Patel asked her during one of their sessions, "How do you feel about dating again?" "I don't know," Simone said honestly. "I'm not sure I'm ready." "That's okay. But when you are ready, I want you to remember something. What happened with Trevor wasn't your fault. You didn't fail. The marriage failed because he chose to lie and cheat and steal. That says nothing about your worth or your ability to have a healthy relationship." Simone nodded, but she wasn't sure she believed it yet. The wounds were still too fresh. The trust was still too broken. She focused on her business instead. She landed a major client, a startup that needed help with their entire marketing strategy. The project would take 6 months and pay well enough to cover her expenses for a year. She traveled to New York for a conference and came back with 3 new client leads. She hired a part-time assistant to help with administrative work. She moved to a bigger apartment with a second bedroom she could use as an office. She heard about Trevor occasionally through mutual acquaintances. He had taken a plea deal on the embezzlement charges, 3 years probation and restitution payments. He was working at a call center, the only job he could get with a criminal record. Rachel had the baby, a girl, but Trevor had no custody rights because he couldn't pay child support. Simone felt a flicker of something when she heard that news. Not satisfaction exactly. Just a quiet acknowledgement that actions had consequences. She ran into Trevor's mother at a grocery store 18 months after the divorce. The older woman looked at her with sad eyes. "Simone," she said softly. "How are you?" "I'm well, thank you," Simone said politely. "I just want you to know that I'm sorry. For everything Trevor put you through. You deserved better." Simone felt unexpected tears prick her eyes. "Thank you. That means a lot. I know you probably don't want to hear this, but Trevor asks about you sometimes. I think he regrets what he did." "I'm sure he does," Simone said. "But that's not my problem anymore." She paid for her groceries and walked out. In the parking lot, she sat in her car for a moment, processing the encounter. 2 years ago, running into Trevor's mother would have destroyed her for days. Now, it was just a minor blip in her afternoon. She was healing. Really healing. Not just surviving but thriving. That night, she updated her business plan. She had goals now. Real goals that had nothing to do with anyone else. She wanted to grow her client base. She wanted to hire a full-time employee. She wanted to save enough money to buy a small condo. She was building a life. Not the life she had planned 10 years ago, but something better. Something that was entirely her own. 2 years after the divorce, Simone's consulting business had grown beyond anything she had imagined. She now had 5 employees, a small office downtown, and a client roster that included several Fortune 500 companies. The marketing campaign she had designed for a tech startup had gone viral, earning her industry recognition and more business than she could handle. She stood in her new condo, looking out the floor-to-ceiling windows at the city below. She had closed on the property last month, a 2-bedroom unit in a modern building with a gym and a rooftop terrace. It wasn't huge, but it was beautiful and it was hers. Completely hers. No mortgage split with someone else. No compromise on the location or the style. Just her choice. Her phone rang. Patricia Holmes, who had become more of a friend than just her lawyer. "Did you see the article?" Patricia asked. "What article?" "Check your email. The Business Journal did a feature on successful women entrepreneurs. You're in it." Simone opened her laptop and found the article. There she was, photographed in her office, with a whole page dedicated to her business journey. The article talked about how she had started her consulting firm from nothing and built it into a thriving business in just 2 years. What it didn't mention was the divorce. The betrayal. The pain that had pushed her to take the risk in the first place. She had asked the journalist to leave that part out. This wasn't a story about surviving divorce. It was a story about building something that mattered. Her assistant, a sharp young woman named Grace, called. "Have you seen your inbox? We've gotten 17 new client inquiries since the article went live this morning." Simone laughed. 17? In one morning? And counting. This is going to be huge for us. She spent the rest of the day fielding calls and emails. By the evening they had 23 new inquiries. Some she would take on. Some she would refer to other consultants she trusted. The ones she took would grow her business even more. She treated Grace and her other employees to dinner at a nice restaurant to celebrate. They talked about expansion plans and hiring strategies and the possibility of opening a second office. "You've built something amazing," Grace told her. "In 2 years you've gone from solo consultant to this. It's impressive." Simone smiled. "We've built something amazing. I couldn't do this without all of you." But alone in her condo that night, she let herself feel proud. She had done this. She had taken the worst moment of her life and turned it into fuel for something better. She had proven to herself that she didn't need Trevor or the marriage or the life she thought she wanted. She could build her own life. A better life. She heard through a former colleague that Trevor was still struggling. The call center job barely paid his bills. He was living with his brother and would be for the foreseeable future. The restitution payments took most of his paycheck. Rachel had moved to another state and he saw his daughter maybe twice a year. Simone felt nothing when she heard this. Not satisfaction. Not pity. Just nothing. Trevor's life was no longer any of her concern. She got invited to speak at a business conference about marketing strategy. Standing on that stage in front of 300 people talking about campaigns she had designed and executed, she felt something shift inside her. This was who she was meant to be. Not Trevor's wife. Not someone's employee. But a business owner. A leader. Someone who created opportunities instead of waiting for them. The speaking engagement led to more opportunities. She was asked to write an article for a trade magazine. She was invited to join a panel discussion on entrepreneurship. She was offered a position on the board of a nonprofit that helped women start businesses. She said yes to all of it. Every opportunity was a chance to grow, to learn, to build something bigger than herself. She also started saying yes to social invitations. Dinners with friends. Networking events. A weekend trip to wine country with Jessica and some other friends. She was learning to have fun again. To relax. To trust that the world wouldn't fall apart if she wasn't constantly on guard. At a charity fundraiser for the nonprofit she had joined, she met Nathan. He was an architect who had volunteered to help redesign the nonprofit's office space. He was tall with kind eyes and an easy smile. When he introduced himself, he shook her hand and held it just a moment longer than necessary. "I've read about your company," he said. "The campaign you did for TechWave was brilliant." "Thank you," Simone said, surprised he knew her work. They talked for an hour about business and design and the fundraiser. When the event ended, he asked for her number. "I'd like to take you to dinner sometime," he said. "If you're interested." Simone hesitated. Dating felt like stepping off a cliff. What if she chose wrong again? What if she couldn't trust her judgment? But Nathan was patient. "No pressure," he said. "Think about it. If you decide you're interested, call me." She thought about it for 3 days. She talked to Dr. Patel about it. She talked to Jessica about it. Finally, she called him. Their first date was coffee at a small cafe. Simple. Low pressure. They talked about work and family and books. Nathan was easy to talk to. He listened more than he talked. He asked questions about her business and seemed genuinely interested in the answers. At the end of the date, he walked her to her car. "I'd like to see you again," he said. "If you'd like that too." "I would," Simone said. They dated slowly. Coffee dates turned into dinner dates. Dinner dates turned into weekend activities. They went to art galleries and hiking trails and farmers markets. Nathan never pushed for more than she was ready to give. He let her set the pace. 3 months in, he met Jessica and some of her other friends. 6 months in, she met his family. His parents were warm and welcoming. His sister was funny and kind. They treated Simone like she belonged. "I'm not my ex-husband," Nathan told her one night when she pulled away from a kiss. "You don't have to be afraid of me." "I know," Simone said. "But it's hard to trust again." "I understand. Take all the time you need. I'm not going anywhere." And he didn't. When she had bad days and couldn't explain why, he gave her space. When she wanted to talk, he listened. When she needed reassurance, he gave it without making her feel weak for needing it. Slowly, carefully, she let herself trust him. She let herself believe that not all men were like Trevor. That it was possible to have a relationship built on honesty and respect and genuine care. Her business continued to thrive. She hired 3 more employees. She opened a second office in a neighboring city. She won awards for her campaigns. She was invited to speak at more conferences. One day, she ran into an old colleague from her previous job. "I heard Trevor's working at a call center now," the colleague said, clearly fishing for gossip. "I wouldn't know," Simone said honestly. "I don't keep track of him." And it was true. She didn't think about Trevor anymore. Didn't wonder how he was doing or if he regretted what he did. He was just a chapter in her life that had closed. An important chapter that had taught her hard lessons, but a closed chapter nonetheless. She was too busy building her future to dwell on her past. 3 years after the divorce, Simone stood in her office and looked at the expansion plans spread across her desk. Her company had grown to 15 employees and they needed more space. She was considering leasing an entire floor in a newer building downtown. "This is a big step," Grace said, looking at the numbers. "But we can afford it. We've had record growth this quarter." Simone smiled. Record growth. Her company that she had started from nothing was now generating over $2 million in annual revenue. She had clients across the country. She had a reputation as one of the best marketing consultants in the industry. She also had something else. Something she hadn't expected to find again. She had love. Nathan had asked her to move in with him 6 months ago. They had found a house together, a beautiful modern place with big windows and a yard for the dog Nathan had always wanted. Simone had said yes, but only after they agreed to split everything equally and keep their finances separate. She would never again put herself in a position where someone else controlled her money. Nathan had agreed without hesitation. "Your independence is part of what I love about you," he had said. "I would never ask you to give that up." They bought the house together, both their names on the deed. They adopted a rescue dog, a golden retriever they named Sunny. They built a life that felt balanced and healthy and real. Simone's friends adored Nathan. Jessica had pulled her aside at a dinner party and said, "I'm so happy for you. You deserve someone who treats you this well." Dr. Patel had agreed. "You've done the work to heal," she told Simone in one of their last sessions. "You've learned to trust yourself again. That's why you can trust Nathan. Not because he's perfect, but because you know you would survive if things didn't work out. You've proven that to yourself." On a Saturday morning in early spring, Nathan took Simone to the park where they had their first real date. They walked along the path where they had walked dozens of times before. When they reached the bench where they had sat and talked for hours that first day, Nathan stopped. "I have something to ask you," he said. He got down on one knee and pulled out a ring. "Simone, you are the strongest, smartest, most incredible person I've ever met. I love how you've built your business from nothing. I love how you help other women find their strength. I love who you are and who I am when I'm with you. Will you marry me?" Simone looked at the ring, then at Nathan's face. 3 years ago, if someone had told her she would be getting engaged again, she would have laughed. Marriage had nearly destroyed her. Why would she ever want to do it again? But this wasn't Trevor. This was Nathan. This was a man who had spent 3 years showing her what real partnership looked like. Who supported her dreams without trying to control them. Who celebrated her successes without feeling threatened. Who gave her space when she needed it and showed up when she needed him. "Yes," she said, tears streaming down her face. "Yes, I'll marry you." They set a date for the fall. A small wedding, just close friends and family. Nothing like the big formal wedding she had with Trevor. This would be simple and meaningful, and theirs. Her business continued to grow. She hired a COO to help manage operations while she focused on strategy and client relationships. She started a mentorship program for young women interested in marketing and business. She guest lectured at universities about entrepreneurship. She also stayed connected to the divorce support group she had joined years ago. She went back once a month to share her story and offer hope to newly divorced members who felt like their lives were over. "I know it feels like you'll never be happy again," she told a woman who had just found out about her husband's affair. "I know it feels like your life is over. But it's not. This is a beginning, not an ending. You get to decide who you become after this." She heard about Trevor occasionally. He had finally paid off his restitution. He was trying to rebuild his career but struggling with the criminal record. He had started dating someone new but it wasn't serious. Rachel had remarried. Simone saw the announcement on social media. The baby, now a toddler, was in the wedding photos. Simone looked at the pictures and felt nothing. Just a distant acknowledgement that Rachel had moved on too. Everyone had moved on. Life had continued. The pain that had once felt unbearable had faded into background noise. She and Nathan planned their wedding together. They chose a venue in the mountains, a lodge with views of the valley below. They wrote their own vows. They kept the guest list small, just 50 people who really mattered to them. The week before the wedding, Trevor's mother called. Simone almost didn't answer, but curiosity got the better of her. "I saw the announcement about your wedding," the older woman said. "I'm happy for you. You deserve happiness." "Thank you," Simone said. "I also want to apologize. For not speaking up sooner. For not seeing what Trevor was doing to you. I should have said something." "It wasn't your responsibility to fix your son's mistakes," Simone said gently. "But I appreciate the apology. I hope you have a beautiful wedding and a wonderful life. You always were too good for Trevor." After they hung up, Simone sat with those words. Too good for Trevor. Maybe that was true. Or maybe she and Trevor had just been wrong for each other. Maybe they had brought out the worst in each other instead of the best. It didn't matter anymore. That life was done. That pain was healed. She was moving forward into something new and better. On her wedding day, Simone stood in front of the mirror in her dress, a simple ivory gown that made her feel beautiful without trying too hard. Jessica stood beside her, adjusting her veil. "How do you feel?" Jessica asked. "Happy," Simone said. "Really, truly happy." She walked down the aisle toward Nathan, who was waiting at the altar with tears in his eyes. Her employees were there, and her friends and Nathan's family who had welcomed her so warmly. She looked at all these people who loved and supported her, and she felt overwhelmed with gratitude. This was her life now. Not the life she had planned when she was young and naive and thought love conquered everything. But a life she had built through pain and perseverance and hard-won wisdom. When she reached Nathan, he took her hands and smiled at her with so much love it took her breath away. "Ready?" he whispered. "Ready," she said. They said their vows. They exchanged rings. They kissed while their friends and family cheered. And Simone knew with absolute certainty that she had found her way home. 5 years after Trevor had jerked his hand away from hers at that gala, Simone sat in her corner office on the 10th floor of the building her company now occupied. Through the windows, she could see the city sprawling below, bright and busy with possibility. Her company had grown to 40 employees across 3 offices. They had just been named one of the fastest-growing marketing firms in the region. Her phone buzzed. Grace poked her head in. "You have a visitor." Simone looked up from the proposal she was reviewing. "I don't have any appointments scheduled." "I know. It's Trevor." The name hit her like an echo from another life. She hadn't seen Trevor in 5 years. Hadn't spoken to him. Hadn't thought about him in months, maybe longer. "What does he want?" she asked. "He said he needs to talk to you. Something about money. I can send him away if you want." Simone thought about it. She could send him away. She had every right to refuse to see him. But she was also curious. What could Trevor possibly want from her after all this time? 5 minutes, she said. "I'll give him 5 minutes." Grace showed Trevor into the conference room. Simone waited a moment before walking in. When she did, she barely recognized the man sitting at the table. Trevor looked older. Much older than 5 years should have made him. His suit was cheap and ill-fitting. His face was tired. The confidence and charm that had once defined him were gone, replaced by something that looked like defeat. "Simone," he said, standing up. "Thank you for seeing me." "You have 5 minutes," she said, staying near the door. He sat back down. "I know I have no right to ask you for anything. I know what I did to you was unforgivable. But I'm in trouble and I don't know where else to turn." "What kind of trouble?" "The restitution payments. I thought I was done, but there were some complications, interest and penalties that I didn't account for. I owe another $40,000 and I don't have it. They're going to put me back in jail if I can't pay. Simone felt nothing. No anger, no sympathy, just a cool detachment. And you came to me why? I hoped, maybe you could help. Lend me the money. I'll pay you back, I swear. She almost laughed. You want me to give you money? After you stole over $200,000 from me? After you destroyed our marriage and tried to leave me with nothing? I know how it sounds, but I'm desperate. I've lost everything, Simone. My career, my reputation, my relationship with my daughter. I'm living in a one-bedroom apartment and working 2 jobs just to survive. I have nothing left. That's not my problem, Simone said flatly. Please. I know I don't deserve your help, but I'm begging you. I'll do anything. Simone looked at him. Really looked at him. This man who had humiliated her in public. Who had stolen from her. Who had lied to her for years. Who had made her feel small and worthless and invisible. And she felt nothing. No anger that needed satisfying. No wounds that needed healing. He was just a stranger who had once been her husband. A stranger who had made terrible choices and was now facing the consequences. No, she said simply. Simone, please. No. You made your choices, Trevor. You chose to have an affair. You chose to steal money from me and from your company. You chose to lie and cheat and betray the people who trusted you. Those choices had consequences. I'm not going to rescue you from them. But I'll go to jail. Then you'll go to jail. That's what happens when you commit crimes. I've changed. I'm not the same person I was. I don't care if you've changed. I'm not interested in who you are now or who you might become. I'm done caring about you. I've been done for 5 years. Trevor stood up, his face flushing with anger. You've done pretty well for yourself, haven't you? Big company, fancy office, new husband. You got everything while I lost everything. I built everything, Simone corrected him. While you were stealing and lying, I was working. While you were making excuses, I was building a business. While you were feeling sorry for yourself, I was creating a life. I didn't get anything from you except pain and debt. Everything I have now, I earned. So you're just going to let me suffer? I'm going to let you face the natural consequences of your actions. There's a difference. She walked to the door and opened it. Your 5 minutes are up. Don't come back here. Don't call me. Don't contact me ever again. We have nothing to say to each other. Trevor walked past her, his shoulders slumped. At the door he turned back. I'm sorry. For everything. I really am sorry. I'm sure you are, Simone said. But that doesn't change anything. Goodbye, Trevor. She watched him walk to the elevator and waited until the doors closed behind him. Then she went back to her office and sat at her desk. Her hands were shaking slightly, but not from fear or anger. From the sheer surreal nature of the encounter. Trevor had come to her begging for help. The man who had once made her feel worthless had come to her because he thought she might save him. The irony wasn't lost on her. Grace appeared in the doorway. Are you okay? I'm fine, Simone said. And she meant it. Actually, I'm better than fine. That evening, she told Nathan about Trevor's visit over dinner. They were cooking together in their kitchen, a routine they had developed and perfected over the years. How do you feel? Nathan asked, chopping vegetables. Honestly, I feel free. For 5 years, I thought if I ever saw Trevor again, I'd feel angry or hurt or something. But I felt nothing. He's just a person I used to know. He doesn't have any power over me anymore. Nathan pulled her close and kissed her forehead. I'm proud of you. You've come so far. She had come far. From the woman who had stood in that ballroom feeling humiliated and worthless to the woman she was now, successful, confident, loved. The journey had been painful, but it had also been necessary. She had to fall apart to rebuild herself stronger. Her business continued to thrive. She won more awards, landed more clients, expanded to more cities. She became known not just for her marketing expertise but for her commitment to helping other women succeed. She funded scholarships for women in business school. She spoke at conferences about overcoming adversity. She used her story to help others find their strength. She and Nathan talked about having children. They weren't sure yet, but they were open to the possibility. If they did, Simone knew she would raise them to value independence and self-worth. To know that love should lift you up, not tear you down. To understand that the best revenge against those who hurt you is living a life they could never destroy. She never heard from Trevor again. She assumed he went to jail for the unpaid restitution, but she didn't check. She didn't care enough to find out. Rachel reached out once, years later, through a mutual friend. She wanted to apologize for her part in everything. Simone declined to meet her. She didn't need the apology. She had already forgiven, not because Rachel or Trevor deserved forgiveness, but because carrying anger and resentment would only hurt her. She had let it all go and moved on. On a bright Saturday morning, Simone stood on the balcony of her house and looked out at the yard where Sonny was playing. Nathan was inside making coffee. Her phone was full of messages from employees and clients and friends. Her calendar was full of meetings and events and opportunities. She thought about that night at the gala, when Trevor had pulled his hand away and everything had started to unravel. At the time, it had felt like the end of the world. Like she would never recover from the pain and humiliation. But it hadn't been the end. It had been a beginning. The beginning of her finding herself. The beginning of her learning what she was capable of. The beginning of a life that was truly hers. She had learned that the best revenge wasn't destroying the people who hurt you. It was building a life so good, so full, so happy that their absence from it was a blessing rather than a loss. Trevor had thought he could humiliate her, control her, leave her with nothing. Instead, he had freed her to become someone stronger than she ever could have been with him. Someone who knew her worth and refused to settle for less. Someone who had taken the worst thing that ever happened to her and transformed it into fuel for building something beautiful. She heard Nathan calling her inside. She took one last look at the city, at the life she had built, at the future stretching out before her full of possibility. Then she turned and walked inside, leaving the past behind her where it belonged, ready to embrace whatever came next. Because she had learned the most important lesson of all. She didn't need anyone to complete her. She was already whole. Already enough. Already exactly who she needed to be. And that was the best revenge of all.